Everybody, hope you're doing great. We are reading Martin Heidegger's Metaphysics. Was a German philosopher. Pretty wordy and nerdy, but you learn nonetheless. Alright, we're on page 167, and his paragraph numbered 115. But on the other hand, Dianon means the violent in the sense of one who needs to use violence. Wow, okay, look at that. And does not just have violence at his disposal. So the need to use it instead of just having it like, okay, go do this. Okay. But is violence doing insofar as using violence is the basic trait, not just of his doing, but of his Dasein. Violence being part of his Dasein. Here we are giving the expression doing violence an essential sense that in principle reaches beyond the usual meaning of the expression, which generally means nothing but brutality and arbitrariness. Violence is usually seen in terms of the domain in which concurring compromise, look at that language of Heidegger, and mutual assistance set the standard for Dasein, and accordingly all violence is necessarily deemed only a disturbance and offense. Being as a whole, as the sway, are overwhelming. Denon in the first sense, but humanity is Denon first, inasmuch as it remains exposed to this overwhelming sway, because it essentially belongs to being. So humanity belongs to being. Humanity's Denon is very powerful in its sway, even maybe it has a terribly sway and a distant sway. And it has a connection to violence. And violence is a basic trait. Okay. Makes sense. Alright, because if it's overwhelmingly powerful, that has force. And if it has force, it means it's violent. Makes sense. Okay, however, humanity is also Denon because it is violence doing in the sense we have indicated. It gathers what holds sway and lets it enter into an openness. Humanity is violence doing, not in addition to and aside from other qualities, but solely in the sense that from the ground up, in its doing violence, it uses violence against the overwhelming, because it is doubtly Denon in an originally united sense. Oh, a united sense, okay. Wow. It is to denotaton. These Greek words. Heidegger loves to use these Greek words like constantly. The most violence doing in the midst of the overwhelming. Wow, he's made it clear, isn't he? But why do we translate Denon as uncanny? Not in order to cover up or weaken the sense of the violent, the overwhelming, and the violence doing. Quite the contrary. Denon applies most intensely and intimately to human being. Thus, the essence of this being that is determined as Denon should come directly into view. So an unfolding and making clear in its decisive aspect. But then, isn't the characterization of the violent as the uncanny and a derivative definition? Defined in terms of how the violent affects us. Well, yeah, violent affects us overwhelmingly, right? It overwhelms our senses, so we're on the right track, essentially. Well, the point is precisely to understand what the Denon is, as it is in itself, but we do not mean the uncanny in the sense of an impression made on our emotional states. Even though it does affect the emotional state, right? We understand the uncanny as that which throws one out of the canny, that is, the homely, the accustomed. Yes, because it overwhelms you, and if it overwhelms you, it takes you out of your comfort zone, which means you're not in your homely zone. Which means if you're not in your homely zone, you're not what you're accustomed to. You're in a new domain. Got it, see? The current, the underdangered, the unhomely does not allow us to be at home. Therein lies the overwhelming. Exactly. But human beings are the uncanniest, not only because they spend their lives essentially in the midst of the uncanny, understood in this sense, but also because they move out of the limits that at first, and for the most part, are accustomed and homely. That is true. Humans do that a lot. Because, as those who do violence, they overstep the limits of homely precisely in the direction of the uncanny, in the sense of the overwhelming. Okay, perfect. See, he definitely brings it full circle. Not circular logic, right? But completed. So, yes, we're definitely on the boat. But in order to measure this word of the chorus about the human in its entire scope, we must at the same time consider that this word, that the human is to denotaton, the uncanniest, does not intend to assign the human a particular property. Okay, so maybe it's not assigning us a particular property, but a condition, like he said, right? A set of circumstances. As if the human were something else in addition. Instead, the word says to be the uncanniest is the basic trait of the human essence. Fair point. Into which every other trait must always be drawn. The saying the human being is the uncanniest provides the authentic Greek definition of humanity. We first press forward fully to the happening of uncanniness when we experience the power of seeming together with the struggle against seeming in its essential belonging to design. Perfect. So, pressing forward to the fullest extent and how the uncanniness unfolds. When it unfolds, we experience a power that feels like it's seamless and connected to the struggle, which the struggle is then connected essentially to Dasein. After the first verses, with a look back in their direction, the second sustaining and prominent phrase is said as verse 360. The verse is the middle of the second strophe. Okay, this is Greek. Pantoporos, aporos, ep, uden, erectai. Yeah, that sounds Greek, not German. Yeah. Everywhere, trying out, underway, untried, with no way out, he comes to nothing. Oh, that's what we just read. Okay. The essential words are pantopros, aporos. The word poros means a going through, a going over to, a route, a path. Everywhere humanity makes routes for itself, exactly, roads, right? In all the domains of beings. True. Of the overwhelming sway, the chaos, the migration of humans, the just sea of human life and human consciousness. It ventures forth, has to kind of go forth, right? And in this very way it is flung from every route, tossed about, making errors, getting lost, going astray, coming back to the main road. Thus, the whole uncanniness of the human, the uncanniness, first opens itself up. If it doesn't open itself up, then it can't go down those paths, because that's to set in motion a set of events, right? It is not just that humans try what is, as a whole, in its uncanniness. Not just that as violence doing, they drive themselves in this way beyond what is homely for them. But in all this, they first become the uncanniness. So first becoming the uncanny. Because now, as those who on all ways have no way out, they are thrown out of all relation to the homely. Well, they do have a way out, though. Why don't they have a way out? And ruin, calamity overtakes them. Ooh, when they don't have a way out. Okay. Then calamity overtakes them. We may suspect that this pantoporos, aporos, contains an interpretation of the dienotaton. Fair point, yes. I would definitely say it does. Move out of the limits that at first and for the most part are custom and homely. And then when you go beyond what is homely for you, it makes it uncanny. That's a good point. But if there's no way out, you'll be overtaken, which makes sense. Assign a human a particular property, not to intend to assign them. The essence of this being, determined by Denon, coming into direct view. These German thinkers, man. No wonder why these Germans made so many moves in philosophy. They think quite different. Very valuable to read them. It may seem dry, but you definitely learn a new way of computing sentence structure.